from Sheffield to Rotherham. My pictorial impressions of a journey along the banks of the Don+canal, videoed mainly in the early 90s. A good place to start the journey, I thought, would be the Exchange Brewery by the Don, in the heart of Sheffield, Ladies Bridge. Downriver, the Royal Victoria Hotel, but just before, the Don is joined by the River Sheaf, which comes in from the right. Then comes the Royal Victoria Hotel. To me, this, the last proud edifice in Sheffield of the once famous railway line, which ran from the station by the hotel and along the Don Valley up over Woodhead to Manchester. A short distance downriver from the arches of the once Victoria Station is the last steam hammer working in Sheffield at the John Holding and Company, Union Forge. A water hen enjoys a Turkish bath. The works of Thomas W. Ward, shipbreakers and scrap merchants, also agents for Ketton Cement. The river now flows under the main Sheffield to Leeds line, and the railway arches are adjacent to the road bridge over the Don, known as Norfolk Bridge, named after its patron, the Duke of Norfolk. Over recent years, the pollution of the Don by industry had dramatically reduced, and birds like the little grebe are now on the river by Norfolk Bridge. Engraved in the stone pillars, the letter N for Norfolk. The view from the bridge, looking downstream over the weir towards salmon pastures. Salmon pastures leads us to Washford Bridge and the Attercliffe Road. Adjacent to the weir is the former Attercliffe goods yard, now the site of Cooper's scrapyard. Cooper's shunter crosses the river on bridge AGY 30 into the yard. Cement tanks for scrapping over Brightside Lane into Cooper's. The locomotive then runs out over a one-time mill race goit fed from just above Sanderson's Weir. The bridge over the goit from the downstream side, and wagons loaded with scrap are being hauled out of Cooper's yard towards Brightside Lane and the main line. Across the road from Cooper's scrapyard and just downstream another hammer, this one driven by compressed air, erected by Naylor and Sanderson, the first company to export Sheffield steel in the mid-19th century to the USA. Attercliffe churchyard and the pillbox, a relic of World War II. Newhall Bridge and Newhall Road. Just under the bridge, downstream on the right bank, the works of Forgemasters with its massive forging press. This shakes the very foundations of the bridge. Downriver, the weir just behind Forgemasters, and on the opposite bank the truncated works of the one-time Firth Vickers, later English Steel, now known as Sheffield Forgemasters Riverdon Works, leading us to the Brightside Bridge, over which runs Weedon Street with the Bridge Inn. The Bridge Inn is on the corner where Weedon Street runs into the east end of Brightside Lane. Here also the rusting trackbed of the Sheffield District Railway crosses the river and road. Looking east down Brightside Lane at its junction with Upwell Street, the once magnificent and imposing Edwardian office building of Firth Vickers. As a child during the Second World War, I was taken to relatives living close to here. At shift change, the length of Brightside Lane was jammed with tramcars and buses as the thousands of workers poured out. Also across the road here, shunting engines pushed red-hot ingots and forgings between the works on both sides of the road, which all added to the noisy, smoky atmosphere. Now let's go back to the bridge over the Don, carrying the now rusting but one-time Sheffield and District Railway line. and its connection with the main line at Brightside Junction. The river now flows through the just completed Meadowhall complex. Meadowhall, a new breed of out-of-town shopping and leisure centre, built on land once occupied by the Hadfield's East Heckler Works, which produced armaments and steel plate. Hadfield Weir and Hadfield Bridge.
Regional Railways service to Sheffield, calling at Sheffield only.
Back to the river, which swings right after passing through the Meadowhall complex and runs by the Supertram tracks close by the M1 viaduct. The Supertram crosses the Don on the bridge, which once carried the Great Central line up to Barnsley. A few yards downstream, the river is spanned by another bridge, across which runs the now freight-only line from Rotherham towards Tinsley. The river turns sharp left under the M1 motorway viaduct, and here the South Yorkshire navigation now runs parallel to the river at a slightly higher level. If one stands on the viaduct footpath, the canal, river, railway and viaduct can be seen together. After flowing under the viaduct, the river is crossed by a disused crane gantry, which for many years served as a bridge to the now demolished Tinsley rolling mills. A quarter of a mile downstream, the river is joined by the canal and is spanned by a footbridge known as Halfpenny Bridge. In the far distance, the HST hurries towards Rotherham on the main line. In the foreground, the freight towards Rotherham on the freight-only line. Our journey has followed the Don from the centre of Sheffield to where it is joined by the canal at Tinsley. Now let's go back to the centre of Sheffield and follow the canal down to Tinsley. The start of the canal is only a quarter mile from the river at Ladies Bridge. The Supertram is seen passing the straddle warehouse, a major feature of the canal basin. In the foreground, the Durham Ox public house, and beyond, the Royal Victoria Hotel. Beyond the chimney, the remains of the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway trackbed running east towards Darnell, and the steam is from the hammer at Union Forge. In the distance, the gasometer at Effingham Road, and in the foreground, the cut and cover tunnels of the now main line out of Sheffield, with the chimney of the Bernard Road incinerator completing the picture. Now a closer look around the canal basin. As can be seen, the buildings are derelict and in need of repair. This view is south facing and is of the terminal warehouse, and at the far end the wooden covered hoist and loading canopies of the straddle warehouse. The terminal warehouse, which was built for the canal's opening in 1819. In 1848 the Sheffield Canal Company was taken over by the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway Company. The rear of the terminal warehouse and the inner basin, panning to the grain warehouse built in 1889 by the railway company. Grain brought in by barge was winched to the roof in an enclosed hoist into the roof space, where it was distributed into timber hoppers. Now, views of the straddle warehouse, built in the late 90s by the canal company. A steel frame was used to support the whole building as it straddled over the canal. All waterborne goods were hoisted up into the building via floor traps through each of the suspended floors. Goods were discharged via spiral chutes or chain hoists into waiting wagons. This imposing building is all that remains of the one-time sheaf ironworks built in 1823 by William Greaves, manufacturing knife, razor, file and edge tools as well as railway springs. the plant later taken over by Thomas Turton and Sons. Now we move up the canal to Cadman Bridge. Standing on the bridge and looking back towards the railway arches and the Victoria Hotel. On the right a boatyard, and on the left numerous small factory businesses producing files, nails, wire products, etc. Just under Cadman Bridge, the ruins of Parker's Wharf, built in the 1840s by Samuel Parker to take in cargoes of horn and ivory used in the cutlery trade. The main Sheffield to Leeds railway line now goes over the canal. Now having passed the Sheffield Corporation's Bernard Road incinerator, which burns a lot of Sheffield's refuse and also provides heating for the corporation's Park Hill tower block apartments. Just under the bridge, a fine old 4-storey brick building with arched windows. This was once a bone mill. A little further on, 2 buildings with a series of bricked-up arches. This was Firth's Iron Wharf. Swedish iron bars brought down the canal were unloaded here, to be taken by horse and cart to Savile Street for the furnaces of the Ickles works. On the towpath side, the stone abutments of a demolished bridge. This bridge used to carry a tramway from the Nunnery Colliery across the canal, Effingham Road and the River Don, to coal heaps on salmon pastures, to feed the coke ovens there. On the opposite bank, sluice gates built to drain the canal very rapidly into the River Don, just 10 feet below, in the event of the canal embankment being breached, as was the case during the Blitz of December 1940. Now, 2 telephoto views, the first looking up the canal to Bacon Lane Bridge, the second looking back down the canal with the spire of St John's Church overshadowed by the Hyde Park flat complex. The rear walls and windows of the once Baltic Steelworks, named after its main source of iron, the Swedish Baltic ports, to which it was linked via the canal. Next to Baltic Works, the ingot reheating furnace chimney and another hammer exhaust chimney, this time at Fitzallen Works, founded in 1839. Now comes Spartan Steel and Alloys Limited, which is on both sides of the canal and linked by a footbridge. In between all this lot is the one-time wharf for Pickford and Holland's brickyard. the emblem of Spartan Steel and Alloys Limited on the end wall of the factory, Staniforth Road, which runs over Pinfold Bridge. Beyond Pinfold Bridge are two new arched metal bridges, both bridges aesthetically pleasing to the eye. The bridges span the Attercliffe Cut, which during its excavation used hundreds of unemployed men between 1815 and 1819. At the far end of the cut is Shirland Lane Bridge, and then the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway Bridge of 1864. The line is now freight only, but was not always the case. The massive stone wall, topped with blue brick, is the remains of the once Attercliffe station. Now we come to the aqueduct, built in 1819 over the Attercliffe to Worksop Turnpike. The road is still named after the turnpike, Worksop Road. Half a mile along the canal from the aqueduct is Pothouse Bridge. Standing on the bridge and looking back down the canal towards the aqueduct, the stadium is seen, built in 1991 for the World Student Games. The locomotives running under Pothouse Bridge up to Tinsley Depot run past the arena. No longer is imported Swedish iron brought down the canal, but these imports from the Baltic, migrating starlings, oblivious of the high voltage, have found a roost for the night. Now the Broughton Lane Bridge. Standing on the bridge and looking back to the arena can be seen a huge ladle, once used for carrying molten steel in the works of Brown Baileys, which occupied this site. Past the arena and under the road bridge and the site of the once Broughton Lane station. We soon come to the remains of Peacock Bridge, a wooden railway bridge with an iron mechanism which allowed it to be raised to let boats through. This was originally built to carry coal from the nearby Tinsley Park collieries. The canal now meanders up to Tinsley Top Lock, which is the start of the Tinsley Flight, a series of 11 locks terminating at Halfpenny Bridge on the Don. The train is off Tinsley Marshalling Yard, running towards Broughton Lane. The rail bridge is adjacent to Carbrook Supertram stop. The British Waterway vessel Eric of Lincoln comes under the rail bridge and then negotiates the rest of the Tinsley flight. Here on both sides of the canal are the offices and works of Tinsley Wire Industries. Past this old cast iron milepost, I presume the 1 mile is to Tinsley Bottom Lock. Approaching and then under the bridge which once carried the Sheffield District Railway line to Brightside. Just under the Sheffield District Line bridge, the vessel is straight into another lock and then straight under another railway bridge, carrying rail traffic from Tinsley Yard down towards Tinsley Motorway Viaduct. Eric of Lincoln now approaches Plumper's Lock on its way down the Tinsley flight. out of the lock and straight under the Sheffield to Rotherham road bridge. Out of Plumper's Lock and round a sharp bend. The red brick building houses the motor and pump which pumps water up from the River Don below, through a pipe and into the canal above Tinsley Top Lock. Now leaving the bottom lock of the Tinsley flight, Eric of Lincoln enters the River Don just below Halfpenny Bridge. Then going under the Great Central Freight Only line as a locomotive runs up from Rotherham, heading towards Tinsley Yard and Depot. Under the bridge which once carried sludge from the Blackburn Meadows sewage plant in side-tipping rail wagons to Ickles sidings for disposal on Thriber Tip. Once under the bridge, the canal and river part company, the canal entering Jordan's Lock, the river swinging away right over a weir. On its way to Meadowhall and Sheffield, the Sprinter passes by Jordan's Lock and Blackburn Weir. Behind the settling tanks and filter beds of the Blackburn Meadows sewage works, the motorway viaduct and defunct cooling towers of the once Blackburn Meadows power station, Eric of Lincoln now prepares to enter Jordan's Lock. The derelict boiler house, whose steam once powered the rolling mills in the works of J. Havisham and Sons. The boiler house, supplied from a goit running from just above Jordan's Lock. Holmes Lock. Not a sculpture park, but rusting car exhausts stacked up in a scrapyard. Two rail bridges, the first out of use, the second carrying the once Midland Railway Derby to Masbury line, now a freight only line, and known locally as the Old Road. the freight on the old road heading towards Masborough, the pacer on the Holmes Chord heading towards Rotherham Central Station. Passing by Booth's scrapyard and the approach to Ickles Lock. Under the Rotherham to Tinsley freight only line. After being halted at signals near Ickles Lock, this freight proceeds towards Rotherham Central Station. Now approaching Rotherham, and once again the canal and River Don join company. Looking back, the river is on the left. The canal split away from the river at Blackburn Weir, and from there the canal was followed to this point near Rotherham. Returning to Blackburn Weir, the river's course is now charted. The river now flows gently through the sewage works, and standing on a works access bridge, clean water from the treatment plant joins the river. Now flowing alongside the freight-only Rotherham to Tinsley railway line, formerly the Great Central Railway line. Across the tracks, the electric arc melting shop and continuous casting plant of Rotherham Engineering Steels, once part of the United Steel Group, and before that Steel Peach and Tozer. Continuous cast bars out of Tinsley Yard, bound for the East Coast docks, and across the tracks a Rotherham Engineering Steels Works shunter goes about its business. The works shunter now brings a rake of empty bogie flats alongside the Sheffield to Rotherham road. The engine, numbered 94 in the company fleet, is a 060 diesel electric unit, built in 1962, just 2 miles away, by the Yorkshire Engine Company of Meadowhall. Number 94 now pushes some of the day's output of continuous cast bars into the fettling shop. A quarter-mile downriver from the British rail bridge is another rail bridge across the Don. This bridge, privately owned by the steelworks, was built in 1953 during the phasing out of the open hearth steelmaking process, which was being replaced by the electric arc process. Built in the same year as Queen Elizabeth's coronation, and sporting a phoenix arising out of the ashes to represent the rebirth of the steelmaking process by the electric arc. The river now flows past Firth Rixons and then under the Midland Railway, Masborough to Derby line. A train of acetic acid tanks over the Sheffield to Rotherham road, and slowing down for a crew change by Rotherham steel terminal and the out of use signal box as the trailing end of the train crosses the Don. For half a mile, the Don now wanders through an industrial wasteland of lifted railway sidings and heaps of bricks from demolished iron foundry buildings. Two derelict old railway bridges also cross the Don here, before the Don swings around by Booth scrapyard and parallels the canal into Rotherham. Walking onto one of the old rail bridges and looking down the Don toward a dual carriageway concrete overbridge. Standing on this overbridge and looking back towards Tinsley, a fine view of the river and canal is obtained. A pacer unit from Sheffield comes around and off the Holmes Court, passing Booth scrapyard and then running by the canal before entering Rotherham Central Station. Now a slight telephoto view showing a coal train hurrying north on the old road as a light engine comes off the Great Central Freight Only line from Tinsley. Back to the Don and looking upriver to the dual carriageway from which the previous shots were taken. Panning left and the river Rother enters the Don. The Rother flows under this arched concrete bridge into the Don, and the now swollen Don flows on towards Rotherham. After the Rother joins the Don, a few hundred yards downstream, we are back where the Don and Canal come together again. The water flowing past the 1857 offices of Guest and Crimes, brass founders. On the opposite bank, the abutments which once carried the lines into Rotherham Westgate Station. Now flowing under Main Road Bridge, the river splits again. The river to the right, and to the left, Rotherham Lock. Rotherham Magistrates Court, and on the opposite side of the canal, on land once occupied by River Don Stamping Company, a modern-day supermarket. An interesting old coal chute of sorts leads us to Rotherham Central Rail Station. Opposite the station entrance, a fine cast iron bridge parapet over the canal, and a delightful canal-side cottage adjoining a warehouse, now used as a store for pine furniture. On the wharf side by the warehouse, a well-preserved swivel crane with loading chute attached. Now back on board Eric of Lincoln again, about to pass under the cast iron parapet and by the furniture warehouse. Now the railway and canal pass the glass-making factory of Beats and Clark with its twin chimneys, the factory producing glass bottles and jars of all shapes and sizes. On the opposite bank to Beats and Clark, we pass the foundry of the specialist valve makers, Bell Valves. Eric of Lincoln is about to pass Green Line Oils, and now I have to say goodbye to the crew as I jump for the bank.